Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Space Monkey Mafia here, and today we are doing some malicious compliance. Before we get started though, I just wanted to say thank you to all you guys who subscribed. I'm like really stoked because I was just talking about having 3 subscribers and how awesome that made me feel just a couple days ago, and I've had 9 people so far like subscribe in one day, and that's just awesome. Just thank you guys so much. End of year assembly ruined. This happened when I was in my second final year of high school. I was the brainy kid. I was in the music program, represented our school at the maths and chemistry competitions, and was never in trouble. One of the teachers at the school, let's call him Mr. Blue, had it in for me from the first day at the school due to some trouble he had with my father some years earlier. My father was a teacher too, and I'd called him out on some stupid stuff that had left Mr. Blue with a chip on his shoulder for me about the size of a redwood. Anyway, another teacher, who we will call Mr. Green, was the AV, audiovisual, teacher at the school, and my friend and I were his prized pupils. We spent most lunch times and before school squirreled away with him in the AV section of the school, tinkering with something or another. When the principal of the school asked Mr. Green to do the lighting and sound effects for the end of the year assembly, he asked if we wanted to help, and of course we jumped at the chance. Now the school had a large gymnasium with a control booth for the lighting and sound. Everything from the microphones to the speakers and lighting went through this booth. Once we knew what each class was going to do, and the order in which they were going to do it, we spent hours setting up lighting and sequencing, often in our own time. This took pretty much all of our spare time for 3 months leading up to the assembly itself. The end of the year assembly was a big thing at our school. Come a week before the assembly, and Mr. Green managed to injure himself badly in a motorcycle accident and wound up in the hospital. Though stricken, my friend and I knew that we could still run the lights and sounds in the gym, so as usual, the next lunchtime we were in the control booth. Enter Mr. Blue. Mr. Blue: "What are you boys doing in the control booth?" Me: "We're setting up for the assembly, sir." Mr. Blue: "You cannot be in here without a teacher present. Leave now." Me: "But Mr. Green said—" Mr. Blue interrupts: "Mr. Green is in the hospital. I don't care what he said. You will leave now, and if I see either of you in here again, I will have you both suspended." Me: "But if we don't finish—" Mr. Blue, getting angry: "Did you hear what I said?" I gave my friend a look that said, "We're not gonna win this," shrugged my shoulders, and replied, "Yes, sir." He and I gathered our things and left. My first thought was to take this up with the principal of the school, but Mr. Blue had been getting up my nose for about 4 years now, and after some furious thinking, came up with a plan. I explained said plan to my friend, who agreed to it, and thus we both kept our mouths shut and answered, "Great," to anyone who asked how the special effects were going. Fast forward to the night of the assembly. Several hundred parents and most of the teachers turned up for the concert. As usual for such things, the lowest grades act would come first, and they nervously shuffled onto stage. I switched on the microphone in the control booth. "Good evening, parents, teachers, and fellow students, and welcome to the end of year assembly." I could see several teachers look up at the control booth, as this was not part of the script. Me: "I would have liked to dedicate this evening to Mr. Green, who is recovering in the hospital from a motorcycle accident, but I can't. Instead, I would like to dedicate this evening to Mr. Blue. Due to his constructive and diligent enforcement of school policy, there will be no music, lighting, or sound effects tonight. I'm sure this will not detract from the otherwise quality entertainment you will see on stage. Unfortunately, also due solely to Mr. Blue, there will be no microphones available for either the singers or actors you see tonight, nor will any recordings be available, as we were not allowed to set them up either." At this point, several teachers, including Mr. Blue and the principal, have stood up, but now it's far too late. Me: "Nonetheless, I hope you all enjoy tonight's entertainment and make a special effort to thank Mr. Blue for his efforts in making this the best end-of-year assembly this school has ever witnessed." I then switched off the microphone and legged it with my friend out the back entrance before any of the teachers could reach the control room. We got a fair amount of grief from the principal and BP, but as we hadn't technically done anything wrong, we received no punishment. Mr. Blue did not turn up to school the next year, and we heard he took a long service leave early. When Mr. Green returned to school the next year, he laughed so hard that he almost burst a blood vessel. Apparently there was no love lost there either. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I'll bury you. This is primarily sweet, sweet revenge, but it was achieved by maliciously complying. Background: I work for a very large roofing company, and in this particular region, there are only 3 companies that are considered when it comes to larger commercial products, i.e. apartment complexes, condos, etc., and my company is one of them. We all had worked the region as friendly competitors, so much so that up to this point, if one of us landed a large deal but didn't have the time to complete it, we would hand it off to one of the other 2 in good faith, be paid a finder's fee based off the cost of the total job, and the cycle would continue. That is until the following incident went down. 2 years ago, I got a contract for a commercial metal building but did not have the crews to spare for this project, so I called the owner of one of the other 2 companies, let's call him Mr. D for idiot, that I previously mentioned could handle this and referred him the deal, which he graciously accepted. My finder's fee here would have been about $40,000, a pretty hefty chunk of change, but he probably made 5 times that in profit. He never paid me this. I tried calling him dozens of times to get paid, but he was now dodging me. Eventually, my number and email were blocked from calling his phone, office, and both work and personal emails. Okay, if that's how you want to be, 2 can play this game. Fast forward a couple of months and there was a massive storm that damaged a huge condo complex. I'm talking several hundred units. At this particular complex, the HOA board made the decision on what company would be selected to do the work. I knew several members and they knew of my work, so I was called in to assist with the adjustment from the insurance company and make sure they were taken care of under the assumption that I would get the contract for this deal. I met the adjuster on site who knew me and my company very well, as we had been working the same market for nearly a decade at this point. He and I tag teamed the adjustment to speed it along, and he also used my knowledge to help him understand what all needed to be covered. He primarily did flood damage claims, so wasn't the most knowledgeable about roofing. Thus, he deferred to me for my expertise quite often when it came to these claims, especially pricing. This comes into play later. We finished the adjustment after 2 full days on site, and the adjuster heads off to go work on the estimate, which he will have in about a week. At this time, Mr. D from the previously mentioned company finds out about this property and tries to finagle his way into getting the contract. Turns out, he knew the president of the HOA through some mutual friends. Mr. D bribed the president with a cruise to the Caribbean and a free new roof on his son's home to try and get the deal. Now, the entire board, aside from the president, was backing me at this point and wanted me to do the work, but the dude just wasn't having it. I was forwarded an internal email chain from one of the friendly board members where Mr. President flat out replied, "I don't care, I will not let blankety blank do our roofs." At this point, the other board members could easily outvote him and just give the job to me, and he knows this and tells Mr. D. So what does Mr. D do in all his infinite wisdom? Well, TurboNuts decides to buy all the material needed for the project, has it delivered, and has a crew start tearing off the roof without a signed contract. He did this knowing it would force the board's hand and they'd have to use him, solidifying him as the contractor. Okay, so I lost the deal, but where does my revenge and deliciously evil compliance come in, you ask? Well, remember when I said we were all waiting for the adjuster to write the estimate? We were about to get it. Now, anyone who has ever dealt with an insurance claim knows the insurance company always underpays the first time around. Just how it is. You then deny acceptance of their price, send in your estimate, and negotiate. That is, unless you agree to their estimate up front. So, the day before Mr. D pulls his stunt, I get an email from the adjuster, who is completely unaware of what is transpiring, with his first draft of the estimate. As per usual, he sends it asking me to review it and see if the price is right. Oh boy, was it not! This project should have cost anywhere between $500,000 and $600,000. His estimate was for $240,000. Fun fact, if a capable contractor and the customer agree to an insurance estimate, it makes it nearly impossible to ask for more money down the road since the customer and the person able to work agreed to the original price. I think you already know where this is going. I replied back, "Yup, looks good, cut the check and send it to the HOA. So I went to the HOA the following day and gave them the insurance estimate, told them that they just had to call the adjuster and confirm they also approved it. They did exactly that, wished them the best of luck, and gave this to Mr. D as he will need to get that contract finally signed for that price. I didn't put up a fight, I didn't argue or try to get the deal back. I simply went in knowing I was no longer getting the deal and would have to accept that. Heh. Poof, I disappeared into the wind to let my plan play itself out. I found out a few months later from my friends on that board that Mr. D went absolutely ape when they gave him the agreed upon price. He tried calling the adjuster and getting a new price set, but the adjuster just replied that if he couldn't do it for that price, I was more than able to. He knew he was screwed because he'd already committed himself to re-roofing that entire complex no matter what. He lost about $100,000 on the project based on my calculations. On top of that, he tried to cut every corner imaginable to get his costs down and ended up doing an absolutely terrible job. So terrible that the HOA is now suing him for not standing behind his work, as numerous leaks have sprung up, and some of the work is so shoddy it can be seen from the street, and he is refusing to pay for it or come back and correct anything. He would have been better off to just do the project properly, eat the loss. His company was large enough that they could eat it and not go under, and walk away, tail between his legs. He is not smart enough to come to this conclusion, as I have found out. So there you have it. You try to be stingy and bite my hand that fed you, then come back for seconds, I will bury you. Occasionally, I feel bad knowing his company couldn't even get a contract for a chicken coop at this point, but then I remember that he purposefully went out of his way to try and screw me and destroy any and all mutual respect we had for one another. He made his bed, now he gets to lie in it. And that about wraps it up for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all that good little YouTube stuff. If you didn't, I'd appreciate any feedback. I'm using a dead cat over the mic today. Let me know if it makes it sound better or worse. I hope you guys did like it. If you did, I'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye.